All right, Dungeon Addicts, we're back for Danmachi Season 4, Episode 4. Every single time I say that, it feels like a mouthful, but we're back. Sorry it's a little bit behind schedule. It was a busy week, but I couldn't be more excited to jump back into the season. We started off the beginning of the episode with another strong start, I thought. We get Belle picking up more girls in a dungeon, which I know from the title you should expect that, but it's funny because I feel like so much of the show is not... I shouldn't say not spent in the dungeon, but more so like there's so many other things going on that it does happen, but it's not as often that we get Belle picking up girls in a dungeon. However, this season really changes the status quo. So it's funny how like it's becoming more of a theme as the show progresses, or I guess more of a focus, because we get Belle interacting with Mari. There's going to be a great big moment of Belle saving yet another girl in the dungeon, and I guess it kind of will lead into some more stuff going on in the next season. But I don't know why I'm talking about that right now, because we're here for episode 4. So besides the introduction of Mari, we do get Belle healing, which... Man, can we talk about how that was animated? My gosh, like why did they have to make it so... It's like innocent because Mari's kind of like Ween in the sense that she seems very childish, but at the same time, they add like a layer of suggestiveness that it's like, I don't know how I should feel about this. Did it really need to go that approach? But nonetheless, I do like it. I think it's funny, and I think it's nice to see more Zenos in the story. And I think that's something that, going off the Zeno arc, I really appreciated seeing a new addition in this, because Mari's just not a new face. I think there's definitely parts of her character that lead to her being very integral in this arc. So, and we get to see the first fruits of that later on in this episode. But I also, we get kind of a back and forth between seeing Belle with Mari and the rest of the expedition party making their way towards the spot that they had in their plan, or at least the plan that they conceived in the last episode. And in one of those moments, we get to see Welf showing off the Crozo blades, which I love every time that's showcased, man, because like not only is like Welf's ability really cool, and I like how it ties into his whole blacksmith thing, but I also just love the motivation behind, you know, everything, and just seeing it progress further and further to, you know, get to his eventual end goal. I just love that every time we get to see it, like we know that like he's making progress to, you know, impress the goddess that he wants to, you know, be in love and express that love to. So, you know, I dig every time we see it. But I kind of want to make this kind of quick, because even though that there is a lot of great moments in this episode, there's not a whole lot that happens. So I'm kind of just, you know, running down what I see in my head as I pop up here. But, you know, of course, in the scene too, we also have Aisha not wanting to get outdone. So we got Aisha being a real big, strong component of, you know, taking out monsters with the expedition party. I love seeing Aisha in this as well. And I think she's got... a great moment towards the end of, you know, being like, you know, this is a party that she can really get behind, because it's not just like them relying on her strength. It's somebody that, you know, it's a group of people, group of adventurers that she can actually sit there and respect. And I think it's just nice to see all of the characters working together. I think maybe it's because this is the first time we really see all of, or I guess maybe I should say, it's funny because I'll use this terminology, but Belle's not like with them, but I love seeing Belle with like finally a bigger party and like a family, or, you know, the familia that he always wanted to be a part of when he first thought about getting to Aurario. So I think that was something that is just really cool to see where they're at now. Even though Belle is still like separated, like he always gets separated. We get more, you know, setup of, you know, what the Moss Huge has been doing in the dungeon with the dwarf adventurer, you know, revealing that, you know, they were down there to rescue some of the missing adventurers, and they found them at one of the save points, and, you know, the Moss Huge was using that as a place to target adventurers, and was even, you know, crafty enough to hide the bodies to not make sure other adventurers were alerted to the presence and being on edge when they reached those spots. So I thought that that was great. It's, you know, again, told through lines of dialogue, but I think it's still really great that it's in there because it's just highlighting the craftiness of the Moss Huge. Now, the other thing I do really like about the scene with Mari is the mentioning of the other Zenos. You know, we do get the, you know, the reveal that she does know the other Zenos like Leto and Ween and Ray and Gross. So that was really cool. I think that was something in the book I liked too, because it's like, okay, well, like, you know, they have that to play off of for in the future, and that's something too that you know, we kind of explain like why she isn't with them or why the others aren't close to her, and that's because, you know, because she's a mermaid, she can't really leave the water floors, and so she's kind of sit there always having to wait for their return. And you know, Belle's able to kind of I feel like in some ways save her from that in a sense, or at least temporarily, you know, by having him take her or like carry her on land for a little bit later in the episode, which is another highlight of this. I really liked that moment. I think it was great, just, you know, in all of Belle's mannerisms and just quirkiness in that scene. It was just great. I loved that. But this is something too that regarding the other Zenos, I really hope that this is, you know, not a mislead opportunity of seeing the Zenos at the end of the season. We should see a little glimpse of them. I don't know how much of a scene we'll get. It may just be more of like not a real like any like lines spoken. It may just be animated to where we see them kind of meet for us like a split second. But I still hope it's in there and it's not just like cut completely. Heck, maybe they can even expand upon it a little bit. I wouldn't even mind that, since it doesn't look like we're going to get to see the Zenos anytime in the next season, or at least potentially not. So later on in Belle and Mari's conversation, we do see Mari trying to keep Belle in the kind of safe zone that she has found in the dungeon, because she does know the Moss Huge is out there, and it's, you know, as we know very well, and that we're seeing early on in this season, that the dungeon is a terribly, terribly dangerous place, especially when you've reached the lower floors. And this is something that, you know, obviously we know Belle's not going to leave his friends high and dry, so he tries to recruit Mari and helping him get back to the rest of the expedition party, which, again, we all know she does eventually grant or like accept that proposal. After we get Belle and Mari on the move to get back with the expedition party, we do turn back into their situation and see them coming up a kind of looming, like I think as Aisha puts it, like a tension in the air, which is another highlight or spotlight of Mikado using her sensing ability, which we talked about that briefly in the last episode. I love how they've been bringing this up like the episode right after we talk about it. It's just funny how that works out. Again, like it's something that's present in the book, so it's not like, oh man, I predicted anything like, you know, major, or like, you know, like that was like me grasping at straws when I mentioned it in the last episode review. It's just something that's nice to see that they left in there from the book, and I think it's, again, nice that it's not done in a way where it panders to just only like the casual viewer or like the one that only watches the show and needs like a refresher. It's, you know, just in there, and for people to pick up on it can be really cool, you know. But this does lead to a ambush of sorts, and you know, again, like we talked about before, you get to see the scheminess of the Moss Huge at play here, with him being the one responsible for creating the pass parade. And you get, you know, just the spawning of the I can't remember what they're called, but they're like the crab monsters. And this leads the expedition party in a really dire situation, with them having to rely heavily on the magic swords, which is kind of, again, like, this is something in the book that was really cool to read, but I love that they're setting it all up in here to where if they want to, like, you know, beat you over the head with it, they can say it, but I love that you can just kind of like read into it as well. But like, you know, we know that the Moss Huge was targeting Belle from using his magic because, well, we don't know really if like the Moss Huge like knew specifically that Belle had fire magic. He just knew that he was trying to chant magic and wanted to prevent him from doing that. But, you know, like, again, the point stands that, like, the Moss Huge is smart enough to know that there's some things that the adventurers have that could be detrimental to his existence, and he was going out of his way to target those things, which I think, since we know that the Moss Huge is lurking in the shadows and keeping an eye on the expedition party and trying to do his best to slow them down or you know, break them down in other ways slowly, that this, you know, just kind of shows the extent of how he's planning it, trying to wear down all of their resources so that they have less to throw at him later. And, you know, with this being like evident with one of the magic swords actually breaking in this episode, which is going to be more of a hindrance for them going forward. But I also just love, we get a slight little moment where the Moss Huge is panning down at all of the magic stones from the spent monsters, which if you think about it, like, you know, he's using them too as like, you know, the servers of a buffet, if you will, because he's able to just kind of go through and pick up all those magic stones to get another little level up before he even attempts to, you know, go back after them or kind of replenish the damage that Belle has already done on him. So that's the like little things that they're doing in these episodes for this season. Like I said, even though this episode doesn't have a lot of beats, I think they do cram in stuff, even if they don't, like, you know, have it tied necessarily to dialogue, or if it's, you know, not directly a main point. They're still putting in stuff in there that I think is really cool to see, and that's gonna, you know, just be a real treat re-watching too. So we do get another really cool moment that I'd say is still another highlight of the episode, but you do get Makoto using her new technique that she learned from her god Take, I think, or however you say it. That's just like the abbreviated form, but you know, the new technique she was learning from him in, was that episode 1? And we get to see the payoff of that with her really badass, almost like samurai cut that she does outside of the sheath, which I found really dope. This was something that, I don't know if this is in, this episode's current timeline of information, but I know it's confirmed later in the books. But for anybody that might be wondering, like, you know, oh, she learned a new technique, but she kind of just pulled that out of like nowhere. But I think it helps to also have the knowledge that out of Hestia Familia, Makoto is the second best in terms of her status. So she's number 2, only behind Belle. And I think that kind of helps, you know, bridge that gap as well, because Makoto is, I think she's probably the one that's gotten the most dungeon action out of the Hestia Familia. I mean, probably if you exclude like Belle, right? Because even though Belle's been adventuring less time, like, you know, everybody's after Belle, so he just got a lot of stuff to overcome. Okay, but Makoto, you know, it makes sense, and I think it highlights that really well in this episode. And if we get that information dump later on in the season or next season, I think it'll make a lot of sense for people as well. But yeah, I think that's going to be about wrapping it up. I want to make this one shorter for you guys since, like I said, this one did have a lot of action moments in it, which, again, I thought it was really solid. Again, you know, the way they do some of the action scenes, like, I wish they were more, I don't know how you'd call it, less choppy, I guess, but I still really dig it. I think the tension is there. They're building it up to be a really, really hype fight between the Moss Huge and the party, or Belle, you know, if he gets there in time, which, you know, I won't put any spoilers there, but I think that fight will be really cool. I think as long as that fight is really, really good, the other kind of minor things I have about some of the battles so far is fine. Plus, this is also, like, even though we are getting a lead up to something really cool, and we've seen some scuttles, we haven't seen any big fights. I mean, I'd say we haven't seen really any big fights that are in this arc yet, so there's still plenty of room to, you know, to not let us down in, is basically what I want to say. But, yeah, the only last remark, this is the last thing, and then I promise I will go, but I really do love that at the end of the episode, we see that they're kind of put in a corner, they're surrounded, and they're kind of thinking that using Harahime's magic is the last resort. So I love that Aisha is, they're in the midst of being surrounded. There's monsters everywhere. It's the dungeon, right? You're not supposed to take a minute off of, the task at hand. But Aisha still stands there and makes every single outsider swear that they're not going to say anything about Harahime's level boost. And so I love that. I think it's just, it was another moment that, like, as soon as it popped up in the episode, I was like, all right, that's right. She did do that in the book, and that was so great. I think it just highlights, how much Aisha cares for Harahime, and not only that, but the extent of, how important keeping something like this under wraps is. And so, yeah, I just really love how all of that plays out. And, man, you got to end it on Harahime, like, starting her spell. This will make a really good start for the next episode, probably, if we get to it like right at the start and they don't save it. But whenever that shows up in the next episode, that's going to be really hype, because every single time she says grow, it's like, oh man, something dope's about to happen. So like I said, the next episode is already up for me to watch. I don't know if these are going to like release on the channel the same day. I think we're probably going to have a day or two buffer. So expect it, but don't worry if you don't see it immediately. But I'll probably have to wait and watch the next one tomorrow, which is going to be a bummer, but I am looking forward to it. And tell me what you guys are looking forward to the most next episode. For me, it's definitely seeing the level boost. I don't know if we're going to get the final fight of the Moss Huge in the next episode. Something tells me we probably are, but I'll be honest, like I was thinking about this in like a couple of beats, and I was like, well, I know this and this has got to happen, but also I don't remember exactly how we got to that point, so it's going to be interesting. I've been rereading volume 16, so my book knowledge is there right now instead of back in volume 12. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here, and we'll see you for the next episode review. But until then, guys, peace, addicts.